Egghead Hockey here. Today we'll be saying my predictions for the 2020 NHL Playoff Exhibition Games. But before we get to today's video, I do have to go over one thing, and that is, by the time this video is up, Pittsburgh versus Philadelphia will have started. And hopefully it's not too far into the game, but this video took way longer than it should have to make, so sorry about that. Anyways, let's get into today's video. So the first prediction I'm going to do is the Pittsburgh Penguins versus Philadelphia Flyers game. In the season series, the Penguins won 2-1. So these teams were very close in the series. Each team won their first game in a blowout, and they both had a very close final game, with the Penguins winning it 4-3 in overtime. In the season, the Flyers had a better record by 3 points, so they were also very close in the standings. But Pittsburgh played a lot of their season without their star players, and the Flyers got a lot of their wins from a win streak. So I think since the Penguins have their star players back, they will win the game. I think it will still be close as the Flyers are a very good team, but I think the Penguins will come out on top. The second prediction is the Maple Leafs versus Canadiens game. The Canadiens swept the season series against the Leafs, but 2 out of 3 of their wins were in overtime. So this series was still competitive, and it wasn't a complete blowout. I think the Canadiens will win this exhibition game as they have an all-rounded lineup, and it's more all-rounded than the Leafs lineup, as the Leafs have a very lopsided lineup in favor of their offense. But the Canadiens have their star goalie, Carey Price, and I think he will be able to hold the door shut and not let in too many goals. But if Carey Price doesn't play well, the Canadiens still have a good defensive lineup. But this game sort of depends on Carey Price, and if he doesn't play well, it could go the other way. But I still think the Canadiens will win this game, as Carey Price is still a very good goaltender and he isn't that inconsistent. The third prediction is the Oilers versus Flames game. This game will probably be less exciting than the regular season games, as the Alberta rivalry will have less fighting and contact because of the pandemic. In the season series, the Flames won it 3-1, but each team's first win was a blowout and the rest were close. I think the Oilers will win because of a few factors. Firstly, they added multiple key assets at the deadline, such as Andreas Anthony, Tyler Ennis, and Mike Green. Secondly, they are pretty similar to the Flames in all facets of the game except for offense. And in the offensive side of the game, the Oilers are better. I think this will be a close game, but the Oilers' offensive powerhouse lineup may be too much for the Leafs' defensive and goaltending lines. Now we move on to the second day of exhibition games, and this day is more busy than the first and last day, as it includes 6 different games. So I might go through some of these quicker than the others, as I don't want the video to be too long. The fourth prediction is the Lightning versus Panthers game. I think the Lightning will win this game. The Lightning won the season series 3-1. 2 out of 3 of their wins were won by 3 or more goals. They overall have a way better lineup, and I do get the argument that anything can happen, especially when I'm talking about the Lightning because of last year's upset. But when you're predicting something, you sort of have to play the odds. Yeah, the Lightning lost to Columbus last year, and they could lose to a team that's worse than them, but last year's Blue Jackets are better than this year's Panthers, and by quite a bit. So I am playing the odds by saying the Lightning will win, and it's looking like they will win. The fifth prediction is the Avs versus Minnesota game. The season series between the Avs and the Wilds was very close, and it ended up being a 2-2 tie. Both teams won a game by 1 goal and another by 2 goals, so they were very close. But I think the Avs will come out on top. I think the game will be close, but I also think the Avs have a better team, and they also just played better than the Wild this year. So the season series may have just been a one-off. And after all, it was still close, so you can't really draw any conclusions either way from it. So I think it will be a very close game, but I think the Avs will come out on top. The sixth prediction is the Carolina versus Capitals game. The season series was tied 2-2, and all the games were close. So you, yet again, can't draw any conclusions from the season series. I think the Capitals will win the game. Yes, they got swept by the Canes last year in the playoffs, but this isn't the playoffs, so you can't really make the argument that the Canes play better than the Capitals in the playoffs. I think it will be really close, just like a lot of these other games. But I think the Caps will still come out on top. And I think last year's upset was sort of a fluke. It may be a little controversial saying that, but I think the Capitals probably could have won that one easily. I still could go either way for this game, so this prediction isn't one of my more reassuring ones, but I think the Capitals are a little bit more likely to win this one. The 7th prediction is the Chicago Blackhawks versus the St. Louis Blues game. The Blues swept the season series 4-0, and they were a much better team than the Blackhawks this year, so I think they will win. And if you're still not convinced, it is said that Corey Crawford, the Blackhawks' solid starter, may not play in the exhibition game. And I don't think Malcolm Subban will be good enough to shut the door against the Blues. The 8th prediction is the Islanders versus Rangers game. The Rangers won the season series 3-1. Both of these teams have pretty mediocre lineups, no offense to Rangers and Islanders fans. And they were also right next to each other in the standings. But since the Rangers play well against the Islanders, I'm going to have to say that the Rangers will win this game. I think it will be a very close game, just like a couple other of these games, but I think the Rangers will come out on top. The 9th prediction is the Canucks versus Jets game. The Jets won the season series 2-0, and each game was won by 3 or more goals. Both teams have good lineups, but the Jets have bad defense, and their goaltending does balance it out. But the Canucks have a more all-rounded lineup, and both teams are pretty good and have pretty good lines. If the Canucks didn't lose Jacob Markstrom, they probably would have been second or first in the division, and they would have most likely been ahead of the Jets in the standings, but the Jets simply play well against the Canucks, and that's why I have them winning the exhibition game against the Canucks. Now we come to the final day of exhibition games, July 30th. And the 10th prediction is the Predators versus Stars game. The season series was tied 2-2, and all the games were pretty close. 3 out of 4 of the games were won by 2 or less goals. I think the Stars will win this game, but it will be close. They have a better lineup, not by too much. They play better than the Preds did this season, also not by too much, but I think they will still come out on top because it's just that little extra bit. I think this game will be close, but I think the Stars will win it by maybe 1 or 2 goals. The 11th prediction is the Blue Jackets versus Boston Bruins game. The Jackets won the season series 2-0, but the only game that could be considered a blowout from the series was the last game of the series where Columbus won 3-0, and the other game was 2-1 in overtime. So the series wasn't a complete blowout. I think the Bruins will win this game. They are quite a bit better than the Jackets, and I think they'll win because of that. You could say anything could happen because of what happened in the Jackets Lightning series last year, but I think it is way more likely that the Bruins win this game than not. The 12th and final prediction of today's video is the Knights versus Coyotes game. The Knights won the season series 3-1, and only one game would be considered close, and that game was 2-1 in favor of the Knights. I think the Knights have a better team, and they are better than the Coyotes. And they also played very well against them. So I think they'll win this game. Thank you. Yeah, you listening right there. Thank you so much for watching until the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to tune in for more content coming out very frequently. And until next time, bye.